Happy Tuesday, guys. Welcome to Transformation Tuesday. Tonight I'm diving deep into consciousness. If you guys are watching the replay, hello, good to have you here. If you guys are jumping on live, give me some love, give us a shout out, and I look forward to answering your questions as we get into this, because I'm going to be sharing one of the most common questions that I get asked around how do we elevate our consciousness? How do we become more conscious aware? How do we become aware of our limitations? How do we understand ourselves? How do we know ourselves? So these are the core questions that we want to dive deep into tonight. Hey Paul, hey Heidi, good to see you guys here. Tonight we're diving into consciousness, conscious awareness. Hey Paul, good to see you here. And if you guys have questions on consciousness, on how to improve, how to upgrade, how to hack our consciousness, how to improve our conscious awareness, ask me questions as we go, because this is something that comes up a lot with a lot of clients. And when we get this, when we get some of the distinctions I'm going to be sharing with you, our reality shifts completely, because we can override the natural programming of the human condition. We can override our unconscious mind, we can override our ego, and we can take control of, we can be the one in the driver's seat. So I'm going to dive straight into this. So first of all, what do we mean by consciousness? What do we mean by consciousness? What do you guys reckon we mean by consciousness? When you say the word consciousness, what is that? Well, I define consciousness, or conscious awareness. Hey Mariana, good to have you here. I define conscious awareness as the degree to which you can be the watcher or the observer of your experience. I'll say that again. Conscious awareness is the degree, and again, conscious awareness is a spectrum. So you could say you are consciously aware, but to what degree are you consciously aware? Now this is the key distinction, is there is a spectrum of conscious awareness. Hey Mariana, good to see you here. So conscious awareness is the degree to which you can be the watcher or the observer of your experience. Now, it is the degree to which you can observe that is going to determine the degree of empowerment that you have in your life, because you become aware of what is unfolding in your experience. Hey, good to see you there, Lil Janana. I hope I pronounced your name right. Let me know how to pronounce that. Good to see you here. Thanks, Paul. This sounds helpful for my spiritual awakening and keeping positive. Yeah, Paul, tune in. I'm going to give you the secret to avoid suffering, avoid depression, avoid anxiety. It's all created in the mind, and it's all created by a lack of awareness of a couple of different distinctions that I'm going to share with you. So your conscious awareness is the degree to which you can be aware, the degree to which you can be the watcher or the observer of your experience. So what does that mean? Well, this is that we're talking about the space in which you can observe your experience, because a lot of people are aware of their experience, but they're not aware of the different facets or the different dysfunctions or the different parts of their experience. So the metaphor I'll give you is, a lot of people think they're aware, and I was one of them back before I started studying this and before I became a coach. I thought I was consciously aware, but I was like a goldfish swimming in a goldfish bowl that didn't know that it was swimming in water. So most people in life that don't understand these principles, they are the goldfish swimming in a goldfish bowl, and they don't realize they're even swimming in water. So the distinctions that we need to create, so this is the thing, is through creating distinctions, through creating labels, through creating concepts, what we're able to do is we're now to put labels and boxes around things so we can now actually see them. So the fish can now become aware of the water that it's swimming in. So, and I'm going to give you some of these distinctions so that it makes more and more sense. So stay with me, because this builds. Hey Ben, hey Angela, good to have you here. So there's three fundamental levels of conscious awareness. Now, the first level is simply awareness of your external environment. It's just simply an awareness of how much money is in your bank account, has the house been cleaned, how much weight am I carrying? That's very, very basic. So that's level one, conscious awareness. Now, level two is awareness of what are we actually physically doing. So where are we working? Are we exercising? Are we watching TV? We now become aware of what am I actually physically doing with myself right now. So that's level two. The third level of conscious awareness is the awareness internally of what is actually going on inside my mind. So this is the third level of conscious awareness that a lot of people overlook, is they're very aware of what's going on in their external. They know how much money is in the bank account. They know what they're doing day to day, but they're not aware of what's going on inside here, which is the most important thing, because success in life is created, it's an inside out process. So everything that's going on in here is manifested and reflected outwards. So if you don't like your external reality, you've got to check inwards, and you've got to look at your internal reality to then change your external reality, because your external reality gets created from the internal. So that's the third level, is we need to become aware of internally what's happening within us. Now, this goes back to the metaphor I shared before about the goldfish swimming in the bowl. He's not aware of the water that he's swimming in. Well, as human beings, we are unaware of some of the programs, the patterns, and the features of our internal world that are causing all the dysfunction. And I'm going to go into these, and I'm going to share some really powerful internal distinctions that is going to elevate and expand this conscious awareness, which is the space in which we can be aware of what our experience is. Hey, Angela, thank you. Good to have you here. So, and guys, please feel free to jump in and ask questions as we go. If anything doesn't make sense, please just drop in a question. This is like the silver service. I'm here at your service to answer your questions. So if you've got questions, or if you can relate, give me some love as well. It's always good to get some feedback from you guys. So the thing that we need to be aware of, or what we're observing in our internal world, there's a couple of different things. The first thing is we need to be aware of the pictures that we're creating in our mind, because what we're actually doing is inside our mind, we are creating an internal movie. At every moment of every day, every second of every day, we are creating an internal picture in our mind. Now, there's the external movie that we're watching, which is life and the external reality. And now we are creating an internal picture. Now, there's only 5 things we can do, actually 6 things we can do in our mind. We can either create a picture, we can either make a sound, we can either make a feeling, we can either imagine a taste or a smell. They're the only 5 things we can do, which is, we call them internal representations. So they're just an internal recreation of all of our senses. Now, the 6th element is language. We can now add language to our experience. So what we now do is we create a word, a label, and we now attach all of those different 5 senses to a word, and that's a concept that we call thinking, right? That's how we have conscious thought. Now, they're the only 6 things we can do inside our mind. We only have those 6 ingredients to make up all the thoughts that we have access to. Now, all of these thoughts can be observed, and this is where you can hack your reality completely, because when you're able to observe all of these thoughts, it's like you become an investigator, and you're able to diagnose what's actually going on, and you can actually, it's like we're looking at the tip of the iceberg, and then we can kind of go, right, yeah, well, we need to go underneath the iceberg, which is where we're going to find most of what's actually going on. So I'm going to take you below the iceberg right now. So what we want to do is we're going to become aware of our thinking. Now, when I say thinking, as I said, we want to create awareness of what's the internal. Most of the obvious ones are internal dialogue. Now, this is a big one. Some people are unaware of their internal dialogue. It's like they're unconsciously having all these thoughts. And now, look, the thing is, we have set on average, psychologists have found we have on average of 70,000 thoughts per day. Right, that's about 1 a second. Now, most of those thoughts, do you reckon we're conscious of them or not conscious of them? No, most people are not conscious of most of the thoughts they have, because we have these thinking patterns, we have these things that are on loop, these thought habits that just keep happening unconsciously, and they might be internal dialogue. They might be things like, "You're not good enough." "Oh, what are the chances of that happening?" "Not again. This isn't going to turn out well." So we have all these unconscious limiting thinking patterns, right, which is words, as well as pictures, as well as sounds, as well as feelings that are going on unconsciously. Now, what's happened is, if we are unaware, or if we are not observing, so as I said before, consciousness is the degree to which you can be the observer of your experience. If you're not aware of, if you're not conscious of your experience, then all this is happening unconsciously, which means that your programs and the conditioning of your past and your limited thinking is running you. So you are being run by a program if you are not aware of your thinking. So a really good practice that you can utilize, and this is a practical tool for anyone who wants to improve their conscious awareness, the process of meditation is fantastic training if you're wanting to get really, really good at being aware of your thinking. All right, so let me know if you guys have ever done the practice of meditation before. Some of you might have done it before. Some of you might be thinking about doing it. Look, I've got news for you. I've been meditating now for the best part of probably nearly 4 years now, and my conscious awareness of my thinking has just gone through the roof. So my awareness now of my thoughts, whenever I'm having some sort of negative thought, I catch myself out, because I've trained myself through the practice of meditation. So meditation is the ultimate skill to create the ultimate level of self-awareness internally within us about what's actually unfolding within us. So it's a very, very powerful skill, and I'll tell you why this is important. This is important because we need to be aware and be able to observe these distinctions that I'm going to give you. Now, these are really powerful distinctions because when we can observe these, we hack our mind because we recognize instead of all this unconscious stuff just happening within us, and neuroscientists have found that on average, 95% of our behavior comes from our unconscious mind. That's how much of our day is being programmed just by our unconscious thinking, and it's just happening by default. Kind of like when you hop in your car and you're driving your car to drive to work, you don't even have to think about turning left, right. You don't even have to think about braking or accelerating. Your whole unconscious body is just doing the whole thing. So what we're talking about here is when you become consciously aware of your experience, you're able to take off the autopilot switch and you're able to go, hang on, what am I actually thinking now? What am I thinking now? What am I thinking now? So you become consciously aware of each of those 70,000 thoughts that you're firing, and you're now conscious of them and you're catching them out. And you're actually going, oh, hang on, was that one empowering? And was it positive? And was it actually working in my favor? Or was that one some sort of negative dialogue, some sort of negative self-talk, or some sort of limitation? So you can now actually filter each of those thinking patterns and each of those thoughts. So you now become aware of, now you may not necessarily be aware of all 70,000 of them, but what we're talking about here is elevating your ability to become aware on this end of the spectrum, which is becoming more aware, becoming more consciously aware of most of those thoughts as they're coming through, so you can intercept them, so you can understand them. And now this is where the power is. So what I'm going to go through tonight is there's 4 major categories of the distinctions of what we need to be able to observe in order to be more consciously aware. Because we might now be aware of the thoughts that are happening, but now, well, we might be aware of a thought, but if we can't classify that thought into, well, what within that thought was resourceful, what within that thought, where was that coming from, what pattern is that? And I'll explain to this as we go. So the first thing we want to catch out is we want to catch out when we are having a thought that's derived from the ego. Now, you've probably heard of the ego before. I'm just going to quickly define the ego for you, right? So the ego is the program, is the software program that's been loaded onto us. It's like a software program, and it's a fear-based program. It's based out of fear. It's based out of resistance. It doesn't like change, and it's a survival program. So it's a prehistoric program. It's old software. It's basically the equivalent of like DOS software for those of you guys that remember old school computers. It's kind of like DOS software that was loaded on and it hasn't been updated to the latest Mac or Windows software, right? So it's old school software and it's pretty clunky. And its natural default is to basically, it operates out of fear. So what we find is we have resistance. We have resistance to things. We have self-righteousness. We have judgment of others. There's a lot of negative thinking patterns that come out of the ego. So that's the first element, because if we are not aware of the ego, then the ego will be running and it will be running us and we will have no awareness of it. So we might be observing the thought and we go, yeah, cool, I'm having a thought, I'm witnessing a thought. But that thought is, if it's ego-based, but we don't have the distinction of, well, what is the ego? We'll have no awareness that our ego is running us. So this is where, yes, we can have awareness of one of the 70,000 thoughts in the moment, but then we've got to categorize. Well, that thought could be ego, right? Now, we need to have awareness of this, because otherwise, if we're not aware of it, your ego is going to be running you, which means you are running on a fear-based program that is prehistoric, that is going to sabotage everything in your life. So for people that are unaware of the nature of the ego, this is a major problem, because what you don't know about, you can't fix. You can only solve something, you can only rectify something once you become aware of it. So this is why conscious awareness is so important. This is why learning the distinctions and a lot of personal development is really important, because when we learn concepts like the ego, like limiting beliefs, which I'll talk about in a second, we're able to then create distinctions, so we can now observe it, and we go, oh, I'm experiencing that. Then we can do something about it, because awareness is always the starting point. If you're not aware of something, you cannot change it. If you are not aware of something, you can't change it. So this is why a lot of people self-sabotage themselves, is because they have no awareness of what they're actually experiencing. So because they have no awareness of the pattern or the limitation, it's just reality. It's like the goldfish swimming around in a bowl full of water, not knowing it's in water. So that's the first element, is we need to become aware of the ego. Now, the ego the ego in itself, that's a whole nother Facebook Live, and that's a whole 2-day training. I talk about the ego in the 2-day trainings that I run, and that's like, we speak about that for hours. So I'm just giving you a really, really small segment of what the ego and how it plays out. But the main way that you can know that your ego is playing out is there's a feeling of heaviness. There's a feeling of your body feels heavy because you know that you're indulging in something like judgment, something like resistance. It's like you're holding into a really heavy weight, and your whole body, you just don't feel good, right? So generally that's the way to know that your ego is operating. And the core program of ego is derived from fear. So the next aspect that we need to be aware of is negative emotions, right? So we need to then have awareness of, well, what's the emotional experience I'm generating right now? Am I experiencing a positive emotion, like an empowering emotion, or are we experiencing a negative emotion? Now, when I say negative emotion, I'm talking about things like sadness, fear, anger, hurt, depression, blame, all those sorts of things. Now, we need to be aware of, well, what's that emotion I'm having right now? And again, we can categorize it. We go, okay, out of all the 70,000 thoughts I'm having, is it a negative experience or is it a positive experience? So we now have awareness and we catch ourselves and go, I'm having a negative emotional experience right now. Good to know, because negative emotions are action signals. Every negative emotion that we experience is a warning sign. It's our unconscious mind giving us alert. It's like a light flashing on the dashboard of your car, a big flashing oil light saying, alert, alert, you got to do something. You're out of alignment in some way, shape or form, whether it be maybe you've been inauthentic. Maybe something's wrong in your environment. So this is our unconscious body's way of alerting us to something in our environment, our way of being, that needs to get updated, or we're out of alignment in some way. So we need to be aware of that and recognize, okay, great, if I've experienced a negative emotion, there's actually a beneficial piece of information there for me to take note of that I need to learn from in order to resolve and dissolve that negative emotion. So whenever you're experiencing a negative emotion, the thing there is not to reject it or not to diminish it. It's to actually embrace it and feel it and go and acknowledge it and go, okay, great, there's massive data here. There's really beneficial data here in this moment. Cool, what am I going to get from this negative emotion? It's telling me something. What's the learning? What's the realization? Where am I out of alignment? How do I course correct? What do I need to shift in my environment or my way of being in order to resolve and dissolve that negative emotion? So it's really important to actually feel the emotion so you can, first of all, identify it, acknowledge it, take the learning from it, and then release it. And then that's the process for releasing an emotion. So that's the second element, is recognizing negative emotions. Now, Paul, the question you asked at the beginning was around suffering. Now, the thing about this is, all of suffering is created through the lack of conscious awareness that we are creating all of the thinking, and we are doing all of the meaning, and we are creating all of the language in our mind at every single moment that's generating all of our emotions, right? So I'll say that one again. So suffering is the lack of conscious awareness that we are the creators of our consciousness, that we are the creators of all the meaning and all the events in all of our lives, of every moment. So suffering is created through a lack of awareness about what we are doing internally. And it's when we're operating on autopilot unconsciously, that's the only space through which suffering can occur, because we are buying into and we are getting sucked into being unconscious. We are being unconsciously driven by the emotional reaction of the body, rather than elevating ourselves above ourselves and almost like observing ourselves from a bird's eye view and going, okay, that's unfolding below me. That's happening. That's what's happening. That's just a fact. That's a circumstance. It's meaningless. And I'm now observing it from above, so I can now take on the learnings and recognize it for what it is, which is just a circumstance. It's just something happening, because life has no meaning except the meaning we decide to give it. Life has no meaning except the meaning we decide to give it. So we can only experience an emotion when we label something as either good, bad, right, or wrong. We label something from a drop-down menu in our mind saying that was either good, they should have done that, I should have done that, that was wrong, this was right. So we have a drop-down menu in our mind of options, which is now going to, so we now select the circumstances happen in our environment, right? Let's say, for example, you're in a car accident or whatever. Now, there's all these options that are appearing in your mind. Do I want to get upset because it's going to cost me money? Do I want to have compassion for the other driver? Do I want to have forgiveness for that person? Do I want to laugh at it? Do I want to get sad at it? So there's this infinite drop-down menu that's at our disposal, that's in our mind, that most of us are not aware of. Again, conscious awareness of the drop-down menu in the mind of all the different meanings you could give that experience. And in that moment, I'm going to the default. I'm going to that one, which is the automatic one, which is my unconscious mind just automatically pre-selecting it. And then all of a sudden I'm feeling this negative emotion. We're wondering why. Well, I've just decoded why we experience that. And that's because we unconsciously are selecting the meaning in our life. Now, this is how we hack reality. It's when we become aware of, well, what are all the meanings that I'm defaulting to? Now, when you default to something like that, and look, it's a normal default for most people in life. If someone cuts in on traffic, for a lot of people, they get pissed off, right? Their default is to get angry or they get frustrated or whatever, right? You can hack your reality so your default is not the first option on the drop-down menu. You can hack it so you actually scroll further down the drop-down menu and you go down to maybe laughter, maybe neutrality, maybe gratitude, right? So this is conscious awareness. Now, this is where, when you improve your conscious awareness, you improve the gap in time between the occurrence in your environment happening and your choice of what to make that mean. So this is the ultimate skill in conscious awareness, is you see something and you pause and you go, interesting. That person just cut in on traffic. What would I like to make that mean? What feeling would I like to have? I would like to go with, let's go with neutrality. No, let's go with humor. Let's go laughing at it. I'm going to laugh at that one. I'm just going to smile at it, right? Now, this is ultimate conscious awareness, when you can insert that gap. And this all comes through practice. This all comes through daily practices, meditation practice. This comes through conscious reflection. This comes through journaling. This comes through personal development. This comes through reading. This comes through studying things like this Facebook Live. Hey, John. Hey, Grant. Good to see you guys here. So they're the elements there that I'm now talking about that you can become aware of to hack your reality, such that you don't indulge in the unconscious programming. Now, the next aspect you want to become aware of, this is another category within conscious awareness that you can be aware of, is awareness of what is true for you. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you want to become awareness of your truth. So truth is your belief about life, your belief about yourself, your belief about your identity, your belief about the world, your belief about your partner, your belief about society. We need to become aware of, well, what do we believe is actually true? Because our beliefs are all made up, right? When we're not pre-installed with beliefs when we're born. We pick up all of our beliefs from the moment we're born to the moment we are now. All of our beliefs are installed. All of our beliefs are like lines of code in software that are getting programmed from every single moment, from when we're born all the way up until now. So all of us has a belief system. We all have a perspective in life. Now, this is just a conditioned, programmed perspective that we've all chosen our perspective. We've all chosen our beliefs. We can take responsibility for choosing them. However, they've all happened through the moment we're born all the way up until now. So all of us have different beliefs. We all have different perspectives. So who's right? Well, there is no right and wrong with beliefs. We're all just viewing the same reality through a different lens. We're viewing it from a different perspective. So it's in the same way as if you're 30,000 feet up in the sky looking out the window of a plane, your perspective is going to be different than someone that's on the ground. You're both looking at the same thing, but you have a different perspective. So that explains how we create different beliefs. Now, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether really a belief is necessarily right or wrong. Right? We're not going to get into that today, but what we will get into is that belief serving you? Is that belief empowering you? Is that belief getting you the results that you want? Right? Because you could believe something like a limiting belief, which is something like, I'm not good enough, I'm not intelligent enough, insert excuse, insert limiting belief. But they're the most common ones. I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not worthy. So these are all just beliefs that we've chosen to subscribe to. So those are all just beliefs. So we need to be aware of the beliefs. Are they supporting us? Are they true? Right? So truth facts believe is a part of unknowns. Can you tell me more about what you mean there? So what we need to become aware of is, what do we believe? Now, again, I'll give you some other examples of beliefs. We need to become aware of our core values. Our core values are also beliefs. And admittedly, they're unconscious programs that have been loaded into the software over many, many years, but we need to be aware of our values. We need to be aware of our limiting beliefs. We need to be aware of, well, what's our sense of identity? Now, again, these are all thinking patterns that, because they've been happening so unconsciously for so long, we're just simply not aware of them. Just like the goldfish swimming around the goldfish bowl in water doesn't know it's in water, we also don't know that we have beliefs. We don't know we have limiting beliefs. We don't know we have limiting identity. So these are all factors that are limiting us if we're not able to observe what they are. Hey, Jenny, good to see you here. So that's the third aspect. Now, the fourth category of what we need to be aware of inside the space of conscious awareness are the programs, the habits, the conditioning, and the patterns that we've grown up with. I'll give you some examples. People pleasing. This is a common pattern that I have conversations with a lot of my clients with on a daily basis. People pleasing is something that a lot of people feel like they should be doing. I feel like I should make that person happy. I feel like I should sacrifice myself. Now, that's just a pattern. Now, yes, to a degree, going out there and serving and helping people is great, but not at the expense of when it becomes at the expense of yourself, when it becomes destructive. So this is when we need to become aware of if we have a pattern of people pleasing. Now, some people are doing people pleasing, but they have no awareness that they are people pleasing. That's just their reality, right? So people pleasing is one. Narcissism is another pattern, where someone is all about me, you need to make me happy, it's all about me. That would be another pattern, right? Now there's loads of other patterns, which are like, there's heaps of other patterns. There's, for example, another pattern would be whether you're introverted or extroverted. Now that's another pattern, which is again another unconscious pattern. You know, do I get energy from being in front of people, or does it drain energy from being in front of people, with people? So that's the definition of extroversion, introversion. Now, there's not necessarily, now there is advantages in some contexts and other advantages in other contexts from being an introvert and extrovert. I'm more introverted. So when I go out to networking events and when I'm speaking on stage, when I'm running workshops, I naturally notice my energy levels are dropping, right? So this is just an awareness thing that I have. Okay, cool. I naturally know that my energy levels are going to be dropping. So I now need to manage that. So it's not that it's not there's anything wrong with me. It's not that I don't have social skills. It's not that I'm not good with people. It's just that I have a program within me that facilitates the energy flow going out of me. So I need to manage that. I need to manage that through things like meditation, through sleep, through hydration, through food, through fasting, through all sorts of different things. So, and this is just an awareness thing. So, and for those of you that have studied personality profiling, this is another thing. You might have heard that you have a particular personality style. Right? Now, again, yes, personality profiles are real. We have a natural tendency to prefer a particular style of communication, a particular way of being. Some of us are more assertive, some of us are more compassionate. So again, this is an awareness tool. When you become aware of your personality, when you become aware of things called meta programs, which are again more unconscious patterns, our conscious awareness just elevates even more, and we go, great, I now have awareness of all these different functions within me. And instead of being the goldfish swimming in the water with no awareness of swimming in water, we can now go, not only are we aware of the water that we're swimming in, but it's like we can take a chemical analysis of the water that we're swimming in. And so this is just a deepening awareness of what is unfolding in our reality. And this is ultimate empowerment. Belief cannot be proven. Yeah, thanks, Angela. Yeah, look, you're right. This is the thing about most beliefs, is depending on the perspective that you view your reality from will determine the belief that you create. Right? I'll give you some examples. If you grew up in a third world country, right, and you might grow up believing, right, that life's tough. You might grow up believing that maybe there's no such thing as abundance, right? Whereas if you grow up in a first world country like Australia, maybe with a billionaire father, you might think that life is easy, that maybe there's way too much money and I'm going to get everything that I want, right? So there's two people that have two different experiences in their upbringing and they form two completely different belief systems. Not because one is necessarily right or wrong, right? But because that's just simply how they view their reality based on the data they've sampled in their consciousness. And so what they've done is they've created a thought loop, they've created a thinking pattern, which then becomes a belief, which becomes their truth. Now, is it necessarily right or wrong? Well, it's just their perspective. So this is the thing about beliefs, is it doesn't matter whether they're really true, really. At the end of the day, all that matters is this belief getting the result that I want? Ultimately, that's the belief that matters, is by believing in, and for me personally, my frame around what is a good belief is this belief empowering? Yeah, like believing in God. So again, you do want to ask, is this belief getting me the results that I want? Is this belief empowering? I think some other good check-ins around beliefs is this belief ecological? Like, is it good for me? Is it good for others? And is it good for the greater good? And these are the kinds of things we've got to check in and really scrutinize all of our beliefs. And again, I gave you the one there, which is the most powerful type of belief to become aware of, is your limiting beliefs. The beliefs that are holding you back. These are the unconscious negative program beliefs that says that you can't do something, that I'm not good enough to do that, or no, that's not possible. So we need to become aware of any of those negative beliefs that we've created and constructed, throughout our upbringing, simply as a result of us having a particular negative experience as a child, maybe as a teenager, or through some traumatic experience, or just through having a limited perspective. Maybe we grew up in a third world country. We believe the world sucks. If you grew up in a first world country, you believe the world's great. Maybe you grew up in a war zone. Maybe you believe that there isn't a God. If you believe, if you grow up in a place that's, maybe if you grow up in a place that's got bad weather, who knows, that might form your beliefs, as opposed to if you grow up in Australia on a beautiful sunny beach, you might have a different perspective about life. So again, we are conditioned and we pick up all of our beliefs through programming. So that's the fourth element, is we need to become aware of our programming. We need to become aware of patterns and the habits that are unconsciously installed within us. Now, when we become aware of those patterns, which are programs, which are concepts, that's how we elevate our conscious awareness. So, conscious awareness, and I'll just repeat the definition again. Conscious awareness is the degree, and it's degrees of conscious awareness, it's the degree to which you can be the watcher or the observer of your experience. So, the more concepts around human behavior that you're aware of, or that you know about and you can distinguish, the more conscious awareness you can have overall, because you can now identify in each and every moment, what was that experience? You can label it, you can compartmentalize, you can see where it fits, and you can go, I can now see the code of the matrix in terms of my awareness. So this is very, very powerful stuff. Now, I've only just gone through 4 of these major categories to be aware of, but there's hundreds. There really is hundreds. Another one is masculine, feminine energy. Right? That's another one. I've just touched on another one is introvert, extrovert. So there's a lot of different energies and a lot of different concepts that we can be aware of. I've got a whole bookshelf of them there. So I'm just giving you the major ones now to be aware of, and I'm going to be obviously expanding it. And a lot of the concepts that I talk about on Transformation Tuesday is talking about these distinctions. And as you pick up more and more of these distinctions, you become more and more empowered to become aware of what we're doing inside our mind. And when we become aware of what we're doing inside our mind, this means we become empowered because we can identify what's unfolding, how are we doing what we're doing, why do we do what we're doing, which means that we avoid self-sabotage. It means we become empowered, and it means we're able to recognize and become aware of what needs to change. Because as I said before, we can't change what we're not aware of. So they're the main aspects to be aware of. I'm just going to finish off on a couple of practical tools that I recommend you can actually do to increase your conscious awareness. Now, the first one is meditation. Meditation, there's so much science in around meditation that exists, particularly to do with regulating all the different bodily chemicals, everything from neurotransmitter to hormones. There's so much research there in and around meditation. So, look, do yourself a favor, go out and start researching it. Start meditating. Start with a couple of minutes a day, literally 2 minutes a day. Check out, just literally go to YouTube and just say how to meditate. Look up a 2-minute video, 5-minute video, just start. Now, don't worry about getting it right, just do it. And just start to be aware of, the whole purpose of meditation is to become present and aware of just be present and aware, and to start developing the skill of awareness. Awareness is a skill. And so when you're in silence, when you close your eyes, you now start to become aware of what's actually going on. And with all these programs that I'm now talking about, you can now start to observe them all. When you observe them all, you become aware of them, you become empowered to know, okay, that's either limiting me or expanding me. And you can then take action to move beyond it. So journaling is another powerful tool I recommend everyone does. I journal first thing in the morning, and I journal before I go to bed. Now, what you might be asking, well, what's the point of that, Chris? It sounds like a waste of time. Why would you do that? Well, journaling is the way that you extract awareness of all the patterns and all the thinking that's going on in your mind. It's how you extract it all and get clarity on your thinking patterns. And then you can start to see trends. You can start to see repetition. You can start to see, oh, I've been thinking about that, or worrying about that, or considering that for such a time. Maybe I need to deal with it. Maybe I need to do something about it. So meditation and then journaling, very, very powerful way to become aware of all the thinking patterns and any of the thing that's causing you stress, anything that's causing concern, anything that you need to take action on. It will come up and you'll notice it when you start journaling on it. So very, very powerful thing. Then ultimately what we're talking about here is self-inquiry. We are developing the skill and the habit and the priority of self-inquiry, because when we take the time and the effort to look at what's going on inside here, we become empowered because we recognize, I understand what's going on inside me. Yeah, it's reflection. Yeah, thanks, Berto. Great tips for someone with a limiting belief like depression or anxiety. Yeah, this is the thing, is anyone who's experiencing depression or anxiety, that emotion is giving you the data to look internally and go, okay, right, this is the emotion that's now turning up as a result of my thinking. right? Because it's the thinking that then creates that emotion. The thinking is always at the start of the chain. And then to go back even before the thinking, it's the belief systems, it's your core values, it's your sense of identity, it's the deeply ingrained unconscious programming and sense of self that then is generating the thinking. So through self-contemplation, through self-reflection, through meditation, we get access to every single bit of data that we need to unpack what the hell is going on inside this thing, which is one of the most incredibly complex computer programs and just machines that has ever been built. So we need to have the awareness, we need to have the care factor, and we need to take the time to look inward to understand what's going on. Now, when we understand what's going on inside us, that's when we get true empowerment. That's when we're able to become aware of what's working, what's not working. That's when we can get clear on what do we want to create for our life. That's when we figure out all of our limitations. That's where we can uncover all of the fears, all the limiting beliefs, and that's when we can take action to radically transform our life. So, meditation, journaling, self-inquiry, and starting to become aware of, well, what am I actually thinking? What did I just think right then? I just fired off a thought. What was that thought? What category does it fit in? Was it resourceful? Was it unresourceful? Was it expanding me? Was it contracting me? Was it based out of the ego? Was it a limiting belief? Was it some sort of negative emotion? Where is that coming from? When did I decide to when did I decide to believe that thing? So this now creates self-inquiry, this now creates awareness, and this ultimately creates empowerment. So this is the key. Yes, and to stop the ego. So, and the ego is something that will always be with us. The ego is a program that has been loaded on, and unfortunately, there's no real way of avoiding the ego. It has been loaded on our system. However, the metaphor I'll give you to understand the ego is you can either let the ego be the one driving your car, or you can tell the ego to just hop in the back seat and it just comes along for the ride with you, just yapping in your ear. So you get to decide whether ego, it drives your car or whether it just sits in the back seat. Now, when you become aware of the concept of the ego, you can identify if it's actually driving and then tell it to get in the back seat. So very, very powerful awareness, powerful distinction to become aware of and to learn about. I'm going to finish it there, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into Transformation Tuesday. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Grant. Thank you, all the guys that joined in tonight. It's been awesome having you guys on the call. Thanks, Jenny. Thank you, everyone else. And I look forward to joining you guys for next Transformation Tuesday. As always, guys, if you have questions, if you have comments, please send them through. I'm always doing my best to add the most amount of value and answer all the questions that I possibly can for you. Wishing you all a fantastic evening and a beautiful week ahead. As always, lots of love, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks, guys. Cheers.